What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Georgia Sports Nation. We got some more Hawks and Braves content on the way for you guys tonight. We're going to be discussing the Philly series. The Braves go down in that series, sadly, 2-1. And honestly, the pitching, the bullpen in the last game was just not great. That's all I can say about it. In classic Braves fashion, the offense was there in both games games 2 and games 3. In game 1, it was a bit different. 7-1 as the Phillies crushed 4 homers, including a Kyle Schwarber 480-foot-3 bomb over the chop house in that first game. But normally we've been on Georgia Sports Nation talking about how the Braves have been playing so well. But right now we're 2-5 in our last 7 games. So not the greatest stretch right here after clinching the NL East. But nonetheless, here we are. Also going to be discussing the National Series that began last night. We had Max Fried putting in an elite start with only 1 earned run over 6 innings. And unfortunately, he did have to go on the IL with a blister. Now, it's the 15-day IL, but I'm going to be talking about some reasons why I don't think Braves fans should panic too much about that. And now, while you definitely have some worries about Max Fried and these blister issues because it has been a continual problem, I'm going to say some things here that might calm a little bit of Braves fans down if they're panicking about that. Also going to be talking about the Atlanta Hawks and the power forward and center situation. How does Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu match up with Sadiq Bey and Jalen Johnson, who are our options at that 4 and 5? So without further ado, let's get it. All right. So this Philly series, like I mentioned before, Kyle Schwarber, 483-foot bomb, and the Phillies crushed us 7-1. Kyle Wright did not have a great second start. Now, I think with that start, it pretty much removes him out of contention to make the NLDS roster. Unless he goes on a crazy run here to end the final week of the season, I don't see him making the roster. It's looked pretty rough. Both of the starts have been against the Phillies, actually. And while, yeah, it was better than his second start, than his first start for sure, it really wasn't that much of a step where you can say, okay, he figured something out. Because, four homers and Zach Wheeler actually just mowed us down there. And Zach Wheeler, 1 earned run over 7 innings. And we know that we probably are going to have to face Zach Wheeler in the postseason game 1 of the NLDS if the Phillies beat the Cubs, if the playoffs were to start right now. Now, this is not a great look at first to start against Zach Wheeler. Now, we've seen Zach Wheeler in the past, and we've hit him. Up in Philly, we had 3 homers against him. Acuna had that huge bomb against him. Olsen as well had the opposite field homer. But unfortunately, the bats couldn't get it going that day. And Wheeler's an elite pitcher in this league. Sometimes you are going to run into a pitcher that's just on everything. And that seemed like it happened to the Braves that night. Now, more on Kyle Wright here. I'm not worried about, say, Kyle Wright's future or career, if that makes sense. Like, the stuff is still there. The movement on the pitches is there. But honestly, this is just, he's walking a lot of people. He's overcooking his curveball to a lot of the right-handed hitters. Those are non-competitive pitches. You're going to throw a slider or a curveball way outside in the left-hand batter's box. You're not going to be able to get a hitter to chase that. And when that happens, you start walking people. Then you need to focus on not walking people, throwing the ball over the plate. And next thing you know, boom, Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Johan Rojas hit a fastball that was up in the zone. That was a crazy homer. One of the weirdest homers I've seen this year for sure. But credit to him. I don't know how he got to the ball. But that's what happens when you give up all those homers and those walks. Solo homers don't beat you. But, the more you give up those 2-run, 3-run homers, that's going to sink you, and that pretty much did here. Wheeler did a good job backing up his offense, only allowing the Braves to get 1 run, and that 1 run was an Ozzie Albies homer in the first inning. The Braves have had such a great first inning offense all year, and it has slowed down a bit in the second half of the season, not to an alarming rate or anything, because in the first inning, most offenses really aren't that good. But the Braves are still best first inning offense in baseball, and no matter what, this lineup is still going to rake. I don't care if you're saying the Braves are struggling on offense a bit here in the final week of the season. If that happens, which they showed no let up last night against the Nationals, I'm not worried. Over 162 games, you've seen this offense be first or second in almost every single stat there is in the offensive category. So I'm not worried about an offense if we go through a 2 or 3 game slump here where we score less than 3 runs. Just not worries me. Now, we go to the second game. Braves get back to their winning ways, 9-3. Great start from Spencer Strider. Elite start, actually, from Spencer Strider. Going 7 innings, only 3 earned runs and 11 Ks. And it could have been easily, only 0 earned runs there. But he did get a bit tired in that 6th inning. You could tell his velocity was going down, and he left the ball over the plate there. But honestly, Spencer Strider was elite, like he always is against the Phillies when he's healthy. I'm going to keep bringing that up because Phillies fans, just every single time I bring up Spencer Strider, they use the GIF on Twitter replying to me with Rhys Hoskins slamming the bat down and yelling about that home run. Bro, Spencer Strider was injured. There's really nothing to it. What's good, Mac and Leo? Glad to tune into the show. But yeah, as we continue here, Christopher Sanchez for the Phillies, he turned in a pretty good start. 4 innings, 3 earned, 2 Ks, 1 walk, and it's not terrible. He's not going to be one of those main staple rotation guys. For the Phillies in the postseason, but he's had some pretty decent starts against the Braves. Now Acuna in this game got even closer to 40-60. He homered twice on his bobblehead night. And that's when you know something special. Bobblehead night, players tend to do something that just makes them earn that bobblehead night, and Ronald Acuna was able to do that for sure. Now, on the Phillies side of things, really, Spencer Strider had them all mixed up. 14 Ks as a team for the Phillies, but Strider had 11 of those. And there was a point in the game where Strider struck out 5 of 6 batters, including 4 in a row. And that Spencer Strider is the one we're used to seeing most of the season. Sure, he can have some stretches where it seems on his fastball. He's not locating that fastball well up in the zone. It's a little bit lower towards the middle, maybe out of third. And hitters with a good opposite field approach are able to hit that ball and get it to the outfield, punch it out for some base hits. But this Strider is what we're used to seeing normally. And he's an elite pitcher, top 10 in the league when he's pitching like this. And two people had a hat trick. You got Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos both striking out 3 times. Now, on the Braves side of things, Acuna, 3 for 5 with 2 homers. You had multiple guys with 3 hits. Marcell Ozuna also with a 3 for 4 night with 3 RBIs. So when you have multiple guys with 3 hits on one side and multiple guys with 3 strikeouts on the other, normally that's not a great recipe to win the game if you're on that side of the strikeouts. So the Braves, just like the box score says, really was able to pummel the Phillies in that second game. As far as the bullpen goes, clean 2 innings from AJ Minter and Joe Jimenez to end the game. Now, on the Phillies side of things, bullpen was not so stellar. Michael Lorenzen pitched a third of an inning, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, 3 hits. Now, Michael Lorenzen brings up a topic I want to discuss here, and if you're in the chat, please let me know your thoughts on this. I saw a tweet today from Mike Bell, and if you don't know who that is, he's on 92.9 The Game, discusses all these Atlanta sports on the radio. And he said when Max Fried went on the IL today, he said something along the lines of, see, this is why the Braves needed to go get a pitcher at the deadline. This is not a great recipe going into the postseason. And I just stood there like, bro, do you know what you're talking about? This guy, Michael Lorenzen, was one of the most sought-after guys on the trade deadline if you were going for starting pitching. Now, yes, the media, if you look at nationally, will say, Michael Lorenzen, he pitched a no-hitter, his second start with the Phillies, first at Citizens Bank Park. He's been great for the Phillies. If you really look at the numbers, he's been terrible. His first 2 starts, including that no-hitter, were great. But after that, the entire rest of his starts have gone downhill. He was demoted to the bullpen, and the Phillies gave up some prospects to get him. Like this, that was not an option. Now, you bring up other starting pitchers we could have gotten. Lance Lynn for the Dodgers almost almost leading the league in homers last time I checked, allowed this season. Now, you go to Lucas Giolito, who was in the White Sox fire sale. He goes to the Angels, pitches terribly, gets put on waivers, goes to the Guardians next, still pitches terribly. What would Mike Bell have possibly wanted? Because all of these guys are pitching bad. It seems like he just said that to say, we needed to make a trade just to see a trade. When people say that, my first question is, why are you making this trade? Are you making a move just to make a move? Or are you saying, okay, there's some logic to this trade. How does it make us better? What are we giving up? And for me, getting a starting pitcher now in hindsight out of those those four, because they were the most sought after, would have been disastrous. Every single one of those guys hasn't lived up to expectations. They've actually gone below them. Lance Lynn, I'll talk about Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, Michael Lorenzen, and wait, what did I say? There was one more. Yeah, so Lucas Giolito, Michael Lorenzen, Lance Lynn, and also, people were looking at Eduardo Rodriguez. Now, he's been great for the Tigers. He stayed there. He's having a great season. But he was in a trade with the Dodgers, and he said no. He has a no trade clause. If we would have tried to trade for Eduardo Rodriguez, he would have most likely just said no as well, because the entire reason that he stayed in Detroit, at least from his PR and the Tigers PR, is that, his family is settled in Detroit. He really wants to stay there. He's enjoying his time there. So, even if Detroit's not set to win a championship or a division title in the near future, that's fine with him. And that's okay. So there really is nobody that we could have gone for that would have really, out of the big names at least, that would have really said, okay, it was a huge mistake by Alex Anthopoulos not to get one of these guys. And you can't even say he did try. He did try to get, especially Michael Lorenzen. You saw the reports of that. But the guys we did get, Brad Hand and Pierce Johnson, especially Pierce Johnson, he has been elite in every sense of the word since he's put on the Braves uniform. And Brad Hand has been a big upgrade as well. And he's closed a couple clutch situations. And yes, he's had his one or two bad outings here and there. But on the whole, he's been great since he's been on the Braves. What's up, Blackberry? Glad you're tuning in. But yeah, so there's honestly, when I saw that, I had to quote to it. I'm like, who would you want the Braves to get now that you're seeing how the other team's pitchers have performed after the All-Star break? And yes, hindsight is 2020. You can say, oh, Mikey, your argument is futile. You couldn't have known that they were going to pitch this bad. Yes, that's true. But, his argument is 2020, hindsight 2022. He was saying, okay, this is why the Braves need to go out and get a starting pitcher because Max Fried is injured? No, because we would have just been worse. So there was just no great reasoning for that, in my opinion. But I digress here. As we go on to a little bit more about Game 2, the Phillies bullpen has been an Achilles heel for them the past few years, especially in 2021. They had a historically bad season from the guys in the bullpen. Now, this game reminded me of it. I already discussed Michael Lorenzen with the 4 earned in less than an inning. Junior Marte with 2 earned, including 3 hits in an inning and 2/3. And then after that, Sir Anthony Dominguez and Dylan Covey, they were able to produce scoreless outings, both with an inning. But really, that game reminded me a lot of 2021. With the Philly starter, Christopher Rodriguez, they gave him a chance to win the game. He did. Or Christopher Sanchez, sorry. He gave them a chance to win the game, but the bullpen couldn't keep him in it. Now, as we go to the third game, this is the, if you will, like the highlight of the series, this game, because this is going to be known as the Nick Castellanos game for Phillies fans in Atlanta. You got Nick Castellanos hitting 2 homers and that play in the bottom of the 9th. So let me set the stage for you. You got Orlando Arcia up. Luke Williams pinch hitting and steals second and steals third. So you got a runner on third with 2 outs. Orlando Arcia up at the plate. Now, Arcia's probably not the typical guy you want up in that situation, but that's just how the lineup went, right? Arcia is kind of one of the higher strikeout guys in the Braves lineup. He fights off a couple of really tough pitches. He puts the ball in a foul territory near the right field line where the stands juts out from the corner there. Castellanos catches the ball, turns around, and spins and throws Luke Williams out at home plate. and the game goes into extras. AJ Minter comes into the game in the 10th inning, doesn't have a good outing, and the Braves end up losing 6-5 here. Now, if you look at that play when Luke Williams was sent by Ron Washington, I'm fine with that send because it takes three things. Nick Castellanos having a perfect transition from the ball in his glove to his hand. 2, him making a strong, accurate throw, which if you know anything about Nick Castellanos, he is not a great defender. He doesn't have a great arm. And 3, a throw that Garrett Stubbs was able to catch on the line, by the way, on the third base line, and tag the runner out. Now, you can say that the fly ball wasn't deep enough. And ordinarily, yes, Luke Williams is a fast runner. I wouldn't say he's faster than Acuna, Albies, Forrest Wall, definitely not. But we had already used Forrest Wall in that game in the game earlier. So, unfortunately, we couldn't have him pitch run there. And Luke Williams got a terrible jump at third base. That needs to be said before you're blaming Ron Washington on that send. Nick Castellanos was actually pretty smart there. So he kind of, instead of catching it just in front of him, he turned to the side and caught the ball right here. And if Luke Williams is all the way over here on the right side of your screen and you catch him on the left, from that far a distance, you're not going to be able to tell when he's caught the ball. So Castellanos spins 180 degrees and uses that momentum to throw it to home plate. Now that gets Luke Williams all in, like, did he catch it or not? Do I have to wait until I see the ball? And I think really that was a smart play by Castellanos. And normally you're going to see a better base running there by the Braves, but unfortunately it wasn't able to be the case there, and he got thrown out. Now, Ron Washington, I think that's a great send. I would have sent them there too. That's a tough play. Castellanos made it. Give him credit. But the Phillies kind of got lucky in this sense. The throw wasn't exactly that great. It was up the third base line. Now, if that throw is directly to home plate or a little bit just to the first base side of the plate, Luke Williams is safe. Braves won the game. I really don't think it's close. But because the throw was down the third base line, Garrett Stubbs was able to catch it and tag Williams in one motion. And basically, that's the game right there. If you want to say one play that basically summed up the game or one player, it's Nick Castellanos. It's basically what he did. And Castellanos actually said after the post game in the presser, he said, "I thought I should have dropped it. Then at last minute, a voice popped into my head and said, catch it and throw him out." And he said, that's funny because if you look at the Phillies broadcast, if you watch the game highlights, they're screaming, or they're not screaming at Castellanos, but the broadcasters were like, "Oh, let it drop if Nick Castellanos is running for the ball." And they said no once he caught it. And after he made the play, they're like, "Look, oh, Nick Castellanos, what a throw!" And same with me. That was a great play. A little bit of luck involved on the throw being bad but good at the same time. But that's the way sometimes it goes. Castellanos made a couple clutch plays against the Braves that he really normally doesn't make because he's not that great of a defender. But alas, that's what happened. But in this Phillies series, the Braves lose the series 2-1. The season series, the Braves have still crushed the Phillies. We clinched 3 out of 4 up there at Citizens Bank Park. I'm really not that worried. We also started Kyle Wright in the first game of the series, who is not going to be starting in the postseason, probably. I know at least the NLDS he will not be starting. So I don't think people should really be panicking here. Now, as we move on to a little bit of more cheerful Braves talk, the Braves blanked the Nationals 10-3 in the opening game of that series. Now, as I said before, Max Fried, brilliant start. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned, 7 Ks, 1 walk. And then 1 run was a homer to Alex Call, who only has 8 homers on the year and really doesn't hit the ball for a lot of power in general. Jake Irvin for the Nationals has really had a good year. He's a rookie. He's been pitching really well after the All-Star break. This was his worst start of his career. First time ever giving up 5 innings. He lasted 2 2/3, 7 hits, 5 earned, 3 walks. And first 2 innings, he looked in complete control. The stuff was there. He's got an upper 90s fastball and a wicked curveball as well. But in the 3rd inning, the Braves tagged him for 5 runs and did it without the homer. That's the one thing. This Braves team can score either way. Obviously, we know we lead the league in homers. We're on pace to break the single season MLB homer record that was set by the Twins, who had Eddie Rosario on that team, by the way, in 2019. So we know this team can hit homers, but when they're scoring like this, keep the line moving, single after single after single, and these were hard hit balls. That's what I would really like to see, because in the playoffs, you're going to need multiple ways to score. If you're a homer strikeout team, you're going to face better pitching. You may strike out a lot more. If you can't hit any homers and you need to string a lot of hits together, that's hard to do in the postseason because you're facing better pitchers. But if you can hit homers and score in bunches as you keep the line moving, that just gives your offense just so much more versatility and more ways for you to capture that win. So for the Braves, hottest hitters in this game, definitely Ozzie Albies. 4 hits, 4 for 6, 4 RBIs, including a homer, and Matt Olson also had another homer in this game. Now, what I was really, really encouraged by in this game was Travis d'Arnaud. Now, if you hadn't noticed, Travis and Sean Murphy are both really struggling at the plate since the All-Star break. They're batting sub 200, and there's enough sample size there to which I'm a bit concerned about how they've been hitting since the break. But Travis went the opposite way, had a couple solid hits. Well, he only had 1 hit, but he had a couple balls that were just hit at right at some fielders, and that gives me some encouragement that he's maybe turning the corner here and figuring something out. Now, a little bit more on Max Fried here, or well, before that, actually, sorry, I do want to preview the game tonight a little bit. So, Braves will send Charlie Morton out to the mound. Charlie Clutch versus Patrick Corbin. Now, Patrick Corbin's had a really rough year in terms of totality, but the second half of the year, he's actually pitched pretty well. We know that Patrick Corbin, he's getting up there in age, and the first part of the season, it was nationally written about that he was having a terrible year. But second half and after the All-Star break, he's been pitching better. So it's not a cakewalk for the Braves. Morton versus Corbin, two old crafty veterans over here. And for the Braves, Ozzie Albies has hit Patrick Corbin really well. And this shouldn't shock you because we know Ozzie hits lefties extremely well when he's batting from that right side. He's got a 433 career average against him. Matt Olson also is hitting him really well, 6 for 12. And Marcelo Zuna has really struggled against him, though. 195 average for Marcel, which is the low mark for the team with the solid sample size. You'll also probably see Kevin Pillar start in this game instead of Eddie Rosario. He's hitting a career 357 with a homer off Patrick Corbin. So we've got some guys in the lineup tonight, or probably in the lineup tonight. And Pillar actually is starting over Rosario. So we've got guys in the lineup that have had really good success against them. For the Nationals on the other side, this is a young team, and many of them haven't faced Charlie Morton. The only one with a solid sample size is Dom Smith, former Met, who obviously faced the Braves and Charlie plenty of times. He is 3 for 14 off Charlie. But the next closest guy who has a double-digit bats is Luis Garcia, and he's 1 for 10 against Charlie in his career. So I think we've got the upper edge here on paper. If you look at just the pitching side and the hitting side, we're just the better team in general. So we should, in theory, on paper, win this game. But you definitely don't know that when it comes to baseball, especially late in the season when teams like the Nationals, they've got a ton of young guys. These young guys are constantly competing against each other for spots in the rotation, for spots on the field, for spots in the lineup for next season in spring training. So these guys are going to play hard. Braves got to continue to try to get on the winning wagon here to get some momentum heading into the NLDS because they're going to have a bye. So we're going to watch probably if the postseason started today, we'd be watching the Phillies and the Cubs battle it out. We'd play the winner of that series. Now, if you want my prediction for that series, I'd say the Phillies. We'd probably face the Phillies. But, the Cubs are going to be on the brink of playoff contention when they come to Atlanta this week. Dansby Swanson's going to be back. And I think it'd be pretty ironic if the Braves can somehow knock the Cubs out of playoff contention. Dansby said, these fans are so good in Chicago. I wanted to go somewhere where I can win. I mean, the Braves are winning, Dansby. The Cubs are on the brink of playoff elimination right now. So I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see how that series goes. It should be fun having Dansby back in time. I'm sure he's going to have a good tribute video, and definitely deserves a standing ovation for the culture he established for the Braves, and what he did, especially in that 2021 World Series defensively. But a little bit more on Max Fried. So if you look at the IL he was put on, it's 15-day IL. Now, there's 15 days, if you look at the calendar, from now exactly until the NLDS starts. That could put him right on line for game 1. I don't know if you'd want him first day off the IL exactly pitching game 1. So you could throw Strider out there game 1 and Fried out there game 2. And I don't think anybody should be worried about that. Because here's the thing. Next week, Fried would have only had one more start. And if he's been dealing with blisters throughout his career and throughout this year in the second half, since he's came back. If he pitches that game this week, let's say the blister starts acting up even more and he's got to get put on the IL heading into the playoffs or in the last week of the season, he might not be eligible even to pitch in that NLDS. So the safest move for the Braves is to shut him down for the rest of the regular season and put him on that 15-day AL, treat the blister. And Brian Snitker and the training staff, they said, Justin Toscano reported this a couple of minutes before the show actually started, that they're confident that he'll be able to pitch in the first couple of games in the LDS. They're hoping he can, they said, but they're confident as well in that. So I'm not really as worried as I should be, or as maybe some fans that I saw, because last year there was a lot of worry. We only had one healthy starting pitcher, and that was Kyle Wright. Charlie did start, but he always didn't have a good start. And when Kyle Wright won that game, Max Fried was coming back from another blister issue, and in the fourth game, we saw Spencer Strider, who obviously we know what kind of start he had. So when you have Strider and Fried and just won the game with Kyle Wright, you're not going to win a series with one healthy starting pitcher. It's just not going to happen. And now we've got a chance with Strider fully healthy, no oblique issues that we know of right now, hopefully. You've got Charlie Morton, who's been healthy for pretty much the entire season, and Max Fried, who's been back for over a month now. And, you rest him, get that blister all healed up, get it full strength for game 1 or game 2 of the NLDS. I'm in favor of this move. Obviously, it's not great to see him out. I would have loved to see him pitch again, but who knows? Last night might have possibly been the last start for Max Fried in the regular season in a Braves uniform. I really hope that's not the case, because at the end of this year, Max Fried's a free agent. So who knows what happens with Max Fried? I really hope we sign him back. I think we need to, because he's the definition. He's the definition of an ace. Strider is still really good. Don't get me wrong. He's really good. But he is not at the level where Max Fried is yet. And I really think we just need to pay Max Fried whatever he wants. We can easily lose him to the Dodgers as well as Freddie, because Max is from there. Freddie went there too as well. So I don't know. It would be rough if we lost Max. I will say that. But hopefully that's not the last regular season we see Max Fried pitch, and he is a beast of a postseason performance. And if he does go out of Atlanta this summer or this winter, we need to see him win a World Series with us. All right. Now, moving on to Atlanta Hawks talk here. So today I wanted to bring up just kind of the chemistry going on with the forward position and the center position. Now, currently in my eyes, the Hawks have 2 candidates to start at either position. We have Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu to start at center, and Sadiq Bey and Jalen Johnson to start at the 4. Okay. Hold on a minute. Okay, there we go. All right. So when you put those guys in a vacuum together, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to start the 2 best players, which, you can have an opinion on whether Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu is better. But I think most people would say, just from a potential standpoint or a veteran standpoint, Sadiq Bey is a better player than Jalen Johnson at this moment. So, you say Sadiq Bey and Onyeka Okongwu, Sadiq Bey and Clint Capella. Okay, but you really have to look at more which of the two work best together. And for me, if you're going to start Clint Capella, I think you have to put Saddiq Bey at the power forward position to start. And I say this because Saddiq Bey obviously is a much better shooter than Jalen Johnson. We know Johnson's been working on that three-point shot this summer. And if he can shoot 2 to 3 threes and make one of them a game for like low 30%, I think that's perfect for Jalen Johnson as far as like that step up that we're looking for him to take this year. But if you started Saddiq Bey with Onyeka Okongwu, that size in the front court, with Onyeka already being a smaller center, that size in the front court just won't cut it. I just don't think it will. And while it'd be great to have that spacing for Trae and DeJounte and even DeAndre Hunter to operate in that mid-range area, I don't think that that's plausible, especially defensively. If you see the other side of the coin with Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella, I don't think that works either, because you have two essential. Well, Clint Capella, we know, was not going to shoot any threes. He can't shoot mid-rangers either. Jalen Johnson can shoot a little bit, but we know he's not that volume three-point shooter or the three-point threat that you really need to keep an eye on closely every single night out on the court. And now, if you had Jalen Johnson paired with Onyeka Okongwu, then things change. Onyeka is a lot of offensive versatility. He even popped out for some threes last year. We're looking for him to shoot a little bit more this year. And Jalen Johnson is also doing that. Now, with Jalen Johnson's height and versatility and long wingspan at that forward position, that could really help support Okongwu down low in the middle. And I think that those two are a perfect match for each other. Same with Saddiq Bey and Clint Capella. Clint Capella doesn't shoot a lot of threes. He's going to condense the floor a little bit, be a great roll man, great shot blocker, great lob threat, great rebounder. We know that about Capella. But Saddiq Bey is going to need to counteract that with his spacing, his elite shooting. So, in my opinion, there's only two combos that will work here: Saddiq Bey and Clint Capella, and then you also get Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu. Any other combination of those, in my opinion, doesn't really work out on paper, at least. I don't know. Will has mentioned that he wants Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella to start together. I don't see the Hawks ever playing Okongwu at the 4, just because he hasn't done it yet, and I don't think you can ask him in his contract year to say, okay, we're going to ask you to do something you've never done in your career, which is play the power forward position. As we got Southside up in here, he says, I think people overhated JC's offensive game because JJ, and I know Saddiq can shoot, but I'll have to see it first of all. Are you talking about Saddiq? We know Saddiq can shoot it. Like that is out of the question. That he can't shoot the ball. He's an elite shooter, especially the looks he's going to get from Trae and DeJounte, and even Kobe Buffkin is probably going to play a little bit of point guard as well with how high they are on him. But I think people overhated JC's offensive game as well. There were definitely some limitations to it, though. He could not back down a lot of smaller guys. That 3-point shot kind of eluded him throughout the season, but he did get it back the second half of the season. He was starting to rise that 3-point percentage up, and it wasn't the 23% that he first started with the first couple months of this year, of last year. Sorry, but I do think people blow it out of proportion, and I think defensively is where we're going to miss him even more. And I think we can cover up the offense, and it actually makes it a little bit more simple with Saddiq Bey out there. If you put him at the 4 with Clint Capella, you have one roll man, you got a pick and pop man, you've got DeJounte as a secondary playmaker, and you got DeAndre Hunter in there, who I think is poised to have a better offensive season, because if he can just turn into that 3-and-D guy that every championship team needs, I think this team can hit another level. We just need that to happen. But yes, I do agree with you. Overhated JC's game is because Jalen Johnson. There are people in this fan base who don't really see it with Jalen. There are also a lot of people who think Jalen Johnson is going to be a future All-Star. Now, I'd love for him to be a future All-Star. I don't think I can claim that yet, but I really do think he's going to be a great player in this league. Southside also says, I know Saddiq can score, but I just feel like JJ is not there defensively other than the blocks. For me, Jalen Johnson, what he's got to get better at is off ball. Now, it was kind of the two opposite sides of the pond here, of the world here, because You had AJ Griffin last year in his rookie year, who was excellent in off-ball steals, led rookies in steals, and then you had him go below here with on-ball defense. Now it's kind of with JJ, it's the opposite. You have Jalen Johnson all the way up here. His on-ball defense, I think, was really good. Now, just in isolation. If you ask him to move around screens, which he's going to have to do this year a little bit better, because I think the Hawks are going to put him guarding ball handlers. We saw him guard Damian Lillard. We saw him guard these different wings and guards that have the ball a lot. But if he's going to learn how to navigate screens and go over them, when to go under, when to go over, when to hedge, I think that defense is it may take a bit for him to adjust to that. But Jalen Johnson off-ball defense was down here, opposite of AJ Griffin. I think that's where we really need to see Jalen Johnson take a step up in off-ball defense as far as just rotation goes. Help side rim protection is going to be huge with JC gone. JC was great in that department last year. So there's definitely some things both players can work on. And Sadiq, you mentioned Sadiq in this. I think what his biggest thing he needs to work on is just defensively. Now, I as you all know, I was not the biggest fan of Sadiq when we got him. I think he's a great addition to this team offensively, but defensively, that's not his strong suit. And I'll be a bit fair. Maybe I was a bit harsh on him, honestly, because he played for 4 coaches in like a span of 2.5 weeks when he first came over here. He didn't know the system. He was thrown right into the rotation. I want to see what Sadiq can do as far as just staying on his man. Staying home, not being overly aggressive defensively. But I do think Sadiq's on-ball defense is just where that's something that he'll have to work on a lot better. And that's something that JJ definitely has over him. So we'll see how that goes. But any other comments? Y'all want to put your thoughts on my predictions here with the center forward combo? What do you guys think? Should it be a Kongwu and Jalen Johnson? Should it be Sadiq Bey and Clint Capella? Because that's what I think. But yeah, definitely let me know. The last thing I want to talk about here for the Hawks is a little bit about the backup point guard situation. We know Kobe Buffkin struggled a little bit in the first few games of Summer League because he was giving up a lot of turnovers, leading to transition buckets for the other team. But in the second to last Summer League game, and especially the last one, there's 5 Summer League games, I believe. In the last 3, he demonstrated much better point guard skills. The game was coming to him a little bit better. Now we also got Patty Mills on the squad. He's gonna be this. Patty Mills. He's gonna be a great shooter. He's quick. He's not gonna be a great playmaker, and he's not gonna be a great defender. What Quinn Snyder chooses to do with those guys is gonna be really interesting. Does he choose to stagger DeJounte and Trey? Will DeJounte and Trey actually be off the floor at the same time at some points and go with a Buffkin or Patty Mills? That's really going to be the second most interesting thing for me coming into the season. First is definitely the center power forward dynamic, but that backup point guard is definitely going to be a question that I'm going to be looking into in the first few games of the season. But any other thoughts before we wrap it up here, guys? But without further ado, I hope you guys like this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Georgia Sports Nation tonight. Be sure to check us out next week, Friday, 6:00 p.m. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.